So I first heard about this play maybe 18 months ago when Vicky mentioned to me that there was an original script concerning hijacking of the Star Ferry. Vicky and I started talking in more detail about it over the next months, I suppose, and the project was firmed up, I guess around 9 months ago, and we started having detailed talks about it. The script itself doesn't give very much latitude in the setting of the play because it has to take place on board of one of the Star Ferries. That's fixed, and the date is also set 1968. So it was a matter of doing research, finding out the essence of the Star Ferry and the period, so that the audience would have the impression given by being around the Star Ferry and around 1968. I rode the Star Ferry actually quite a number of times, maybe about 20 times, to try and absorb what is the main essence of the ferry, because obviously we're not going to reproduce perfectly a complete Star Ferry on the stage. We don't do it that way. We just have to give something which will give the audience the real impression of the Star Ferry. And I came up with the idea of having two levels on the stage. We have the first class and the second class decks depicted on the stage, although most of the action takes place on the lower deck. The whole concept is to get over the impression of claustrophobia. The hostages are in a confined space. The set is deliberately small and crowded. We have a cast of 21 people who are on the stage all the time, and they're almost falling over each other on the stage because it is so small. They are hostages, they can't get out, there is no way off the stage or on the stage. They're there all the time. That's the impression of claustrophobia that I was trying to get hold of. So that's where the idea for the set came along. Also, I did some research into what the Star Ferries looked like in 1968. They did look rather different to what they look like now. I'm sure a lot of the audience are going to look at the front of the first class cabin and say, hey, that's wrong. The front of the cabin is curved. But actually, in the 1960s, it wasn't. It was a square end, and that's what we have on the stage. As far as the costumes go, it's an interesting period, 1968. There were still a lot of people formally dressed, but already the hippies were starting. We had the Vietnam War going on, so it's quite an interesting period to look at costumes. One of the characters is a bar girl. You will see that she is dressed in typical 1960s clothes. And of course the hijackers are based on Red Guards. So quite a bit of research went into the costumes. They are relatively simple, but I think they get over the flavour of the period. Now, as far as lighting is concerned, this is a fairly simple project for me because it is naturalistic, it takes place on a ferry, it all takes place in the space of a few hours during one night. So the lighting, to me, is not the most challenging aspect of this production.